All right, it looks like we're live. Welcome, everybody. Excited to have you here today. We've got an exciting topic, and I think this is a popular topic, considering we have about 700 people registered for the webinar. So a good turnout, and Mark and I are really excited to talk about this because this is stuff that we banter about all the time. My name is Kyle Parrish. I'm the VP of Sales at Mixmax, and I've got with me Mark Tanner, who is a co-founder and COO at Qwilr. And Mark and I have done a couple of these together and know each other fairly well by now. I would venture to say that he's a friend by now. And so I'll let him say hello.
Hello, everybody. Hello from Sydney. Feel free to throw in the chat where you're coming from all around the world. We'll try to keep this light and interactive as we go along. So feel free to use Orlando, Texas. Wonderful. I'm so far, the Australian is the furthest away. Well, I suppose it depends how you think. There we go. There's a Melbourne. So I think, look, I think as Carl said, we've done a few of these together. We love doing them. We love doing the Q&A part. Please feel free as you go along to throw a question in the Q&A. You can throw in the webinar chat as well. We might miss it depending on how busy it is. So the Q&A is probably the better spot. We've got a bunch of topics to go through today, but there'll be a nice chunk of time for Q&A at the end. So, and obviously you can leave when you want. There's a chance we might go a little long today if there's a bunch of great questions on there. Kyle and I love doing the questions, so we'll see how we go. So very happy to be here.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I was watching the chat roll in. We've got good representation from all around the world. Saw some South Africa in there, Alaska, and one of my new favorites. This is the first time I'd ever been to New Orleans. We went for sales kickoff and had an absolute blast. So glad to have everybody from around the world here.
Oh, Argentina, respect.
Yeah, this is good. I'm glad people from all sorts of time zones are here. Means we probably picked a pretty good time.
Yeah, it's great. Great. Messy, there we go. Agreed. Okay, I think we've got about 110 folks in so far. I'm sure we'll get more as we come through. But Kyle, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, let's kick this off. So when we were talking about some ideas for this webinar, we were thinking, what's going to be the most interesting? We're obviously in an interesting time right now. And so that will color and give flavor to the answers that we give on some of these sections that we have. And so I think that that's very healthy, and you should adapt your selling style to the times. And we'll talk about that very specifically when we get to that. The first topic we've got on the agenda here is personalization and relevance at scale. And Rita, who's running the slides for us, is going to kill this pretty soon, so you can just see our smiling faces. This is absolutely critical. This is table stakes at this point. I think when people that you are trying to prospect to, and look, we're talking to B2B salespeople here. B2B is a little bit of a different flavor. There is relevance here for that as well. However, really the vast majority of what Mark and I are going to be talking about today is B2B. And going back to table stakes, the days of sending a million emails to a million people are just over, right? There's got to be some sort of personalization that comes with it, and relevance to that person's job title, to the industry that they work in, or the things that they care about. And really, that things that they care about is what I'm going to focus on for a second here. Because when prospecting, if you don't hook them in the first couple of sentences, i.e. what they can read on the preview screen of their phone, you've likely lost them. And if it's not specific to them, something that they can associate with, then they're going to go. But look, let's all just recognize that writing one-off emails is also impossible to do at the kind of scale that you need to have done. So this is where certain types of technologies come in play that really help you do this. And I'm not going to focus on the technology. This is what Mixmax does. I'm not going to focus on the technology. I'm going to focus on the fact that this is actually one of the things that matters the most to buyers in this world. Do you understand my problems, or do you have a good guess at what I care about? And how can you associate your solution to my problems personally, right? Like, what do I care about? If I'm the CFO, write to me about the things that matter to CFOs, especially to CFOs in today's day when they're focused on saving money, cost-cutting exercises, all those sorts of things. I just think that if you really personalize a message and are able to do it at scale, and I'll talk about how to do that in a second, you're going to have much better success. Now, how do you do that? first you have to find a bucket of people that all care about the same thing so that you can use messaging that's relevant to all of them and then go in and personalize a little bit, right? And so there's plenty of sequencing tools out there that allow you to do this. You write a sequence and then you personalize the first couple of sentences in it, or the first couple of stages in each email sequence that gets sent out. And I just think that with that type of mentality, you have so much better association with your prospect, click-through rates increase, and actually the buyer experience increases quite a bit. There's a lot of people who are just annoyed by prospecting emails, but if they're specific to that person and it feels like you're talking to them and care about what they care about, you're going to have a lot more success.
I mean, a whole bunch of plus ones, including some love to Mixmax, of course. I think we think about this a lot at Qwilr in a few ways. And I think that, obviously, again, like Qwilr, we're another sales tool. Qwilr has that same sort of capacity in there. I suppose like one thing I would say, like on that journey of like, we can't individually send emails ourselves. I think a thing that we find as a team is going back to that core basic, though, is like one of the best ways to sort of reinvigorate the process, because I think those blast out emails can get stale quite quickly. And even if you're trying to be sort of modern and think about personalization, I do think that like we have a thing where our SDRs will start going back to a zone of just doing individual outreach and just doing a bit of like message testing and a bit of like what actually is sort of resonating in the market. And I think late last year, we had a moment we sort of went through where, the market in tech land changed. I think, there was this sort of tech recession, as it were. And we just found that some of our messaging wasn't working, and some of the things that people cared about, as Carl was sort of saying, like what's actually driving this thing here wasn't quite connecting. And it's totally fine to go back to things that don't scale for a little bit and be like, hey, like let's take a step back. Like what actually is the thing that matters to these people? Having some SDRs focus on some particular like ICPs, like some different people, and try to figure out, like do a few cycles with AEs to figure out like what is actually resonating, what actually matters. And then once you sort of get that again, the ability to scale that back up, like there are a whole bunch of tools that can do that. And sort of the ability to sort of run on that side to then say, hey, okay, now we've got a few things that are working. Let's systematize it and process it. And then again, all these tools out there do have the ability to give you analytics, give you tracking to sort of see, hey, is this actually working? Is this still resonating? What can we do to sort of move the numbers better? And at a certain point, you do tend to hit these plateaus, and then you sort of need to sort of restart the process again. And I think if you sort of just think this is a set and forget problem, you're sort of going to have a bit of a disaster. I think you do need to sort of be constantly, not all the time, but I do think you need to have a cadence of how do you reflect on it? How do you keep it fresh? This is a thing where we kind of all know that I think a lot of sophisticated buyers know how this game works these days to some degree. But I would say that like there is a greater appreciation for people who do it well and who take the time and who are thoughtful and sort of make sure that message is coming across, is personalized, is relevant. And certainly, I think if you're not doing that, I think you're going to be dismissed out of hand.
Amen to that. And would love to hear your thoughts on something that feels very personal, because it is, but you can also do at scale with some new technologies, which is video. We'd love to hear how your team has succeeded and failed with video and learnings.
Yeah, I mean, I think video is one of those things that we've tried a whole bunch of different tools out there to sort of try to figure out what the right sort of path here is. And one that we've had a bit of success with. I think though, there's been levels for us, and I'd love to hear your thoughts here, mate, but like there's been levels for us of like things that worked because I think they were a gimmick. Like there was the one where it was like, there was from a while ago where you could hold your phone up and the phone would have like the name of the person on there. And that like the initial response from that was like so good. It's like, wow, it says Mark or Kyle or whatever. And I think, not that they're necessarily bad, but it's just like there were things where for an initial period, as that sort of was brand new, I think that you can get real value out of those things. And whatever, being on the bleeding edge, is not necessarily shocking. That can sort of get some value. But again, I think we saw like numbers wise that worked for a while and maybe wasn't so good. I think the thing that actually genuinely worked, and this is again coming back to messaging that resonates with your audience, this is like saying this again and again, was just being very good at being like, hey, this set of ICPs at this moment in time really cares about A, B, and C. And so we're going to have a video that speaks to that really well. And yes, you might have some little trick on there or whatever else to try to get them to click on the video, etc. But really, the thing that matters is, does your message resonate? Are they interested enough to like go and find out more? And I think that that's, again, at the end of the day, all the other things that sort of help you over that first little like, thing of like, oh, will they actually watch the video? That is helpful. That's important. All those little tricks and gimmicks can matter a lot. But I think the thing that we've found is just like, if you can't do that with actually great content, yes, sorry, ICP equals ideal customer profile. If you can't do that with actually relevant content, it kind of doesn't matter. And I think we fell into the trap of being a little gimmicky for a while, which had great open rates and then kind of like not much actual flow through.
Yeah, people might open because they're interested, but if the messaging doesn't resonate, they're not going to respond. And that's what you really want. You don't care about opens, you care about the that's a means to an end, you care about the ends itself. And so I think we can move on here. There's definitely a caution from both Mark and myself to never let your prospecting strategy get stale. And with that, we can move on.
Okay. This is a classic. So like we're here to talk about like modern sales techniques. I mean, frankly, SDR and AE collaboration is a tale as old as like modern sales. I think like this is one of those important things that has been going on for a long time. A lot of people have different opinions as to the right way to do this. I'm going to speak about this as like, to some degree, the basics of how I think about it, and then also what some of the tools that come today enable and how we're using them and what we're finding success with. And then I'm going to have a little question to throw Kyle's way. So I think like one of the classics here is like SDR and AE pairing, where you can have an SDR and an AE that are like relatively tightly paired together. They won't necessarily always be working together, but I think if you can have something there where there is collaboration between your AE and your SDR, to some degree, like a bit of mentoring, because SDRs are commonly on the path towards being an AE, and then a degree of helping them understand like what actually works. And I would say one of the biggest issues with a lot of modern teams is like a disconnect between what the SDRs are doing and what the AEs actually want or need in terms of the leads that come in. And if you don't have a feedback cycle that is constantly coming through, yes, we keep using acronyms here. But so an SDR is generally someone who reaches out to prospects and helps open and start conversations. And an account executive typically in sales land is one who helps close the deals and actually spends a lot of time demoing the product, working through that close cycle with the customer. And so I think you can have incentivized people to go out there and find you lots of deals on the SDR side and sort of bring in lots of business. But if they're bringing in the wrong types, or they don't have feedback about this candidate was particularly wonderful, this one wasn't, even that they look like they might be good, but actually for these reasons they weren't. And so I think that feedback cycle, look, you used to have to do things like sit down and have long sessions after calls or do ride-along sessions. And actually ride-alongs in the modern era of Zoom, like having an SDR sit on the call as you do a qualification call or a demo call or whatever it is, to try to give them, A, a bit of training, but also B, to be able to say, hey, in this call, like you can kind of see this was why this didn't work. So I think like that is made a whole bunch easier. The thing that we've been finding is tools like Go and Chorus that do call recording. It's so easy to quickly say at the end of like a call that was set up by your SDR that was an absolute disaster, to be like, hey, go watch this call. You sent me this person. I agree. They kind of look good on paper, but here's the reality of the situation. And then, or vice versa, when it's a positive one, that was so fantastic. Hey, check out this part of the call. Really perfect. And I think that constant feedback of like, this was great, this wasn't, it just helps build the radar between the SDR and the AE, and to allow them to sort of like go on that journey together and build that sort of synchronization, but between the two. And I suppose my question to you, Kyle, is I think when you're doing that as a paired group of like one AE, one SDR, which is a very simplistic model, I think that's like easy. But as you scale, you tend to sometimes move away from that, where you have like a team of SDRs working in a team of AEs, and maybe that overlap isn't quite as tight. And I sort of wonder how you sort of think about that as we move towards that side of scaling.
I am all for exactly what you just said, which is Generally, more senior people are in AE roles and more junior people are in SDR roles. That's not always true, but there is a mentorship sort of relationship there. And so I try to keep that. And you're right, as you do scale, you get away from a one-to-one, which is a very rich and very lucky ratio to have, to more of a scaled approach. Maybe it's 3 AEs to 1 SDR. That doesn't mean that you can't have that mentorship component. And I like to keep that because the consistency is important to an SDR. These are the types of, this is the way that this AE likes to work. And so I'm going to work with him or her in this way. And you're absolutely right. There's a balance that you have to strike here of, are two people doing one person's job? If they're working too closely, you're not getting enough productivity. But if they're not working close at all, if they don't know what the other hand is doing, then you could be doing the exact same thing. And so there's definitely a balance to strike there. In my opinion, I think going away from going to a pooled model is a mistake for those reasons. There's a lot of feedback that is required in the types of deals, just like you said. And in times like these, I think it's a lot hard. We can all agree that it's gotten harder to sell over the last 5 months. Selling skills are at a premium. And so if everybody has those great selling skills when you're prospecting into an account, that account is going to have a much better perception of you. And so here's something that we've done recently. We've said there's no such thing as a bad conversation in an account, right? And so we actually have SDRs prospect very low in the organization, individual contributors who are not decision makers at all, because they can gather information, and information is power, right? If you can get good information on the problems and the issues going on inside of a company, you can use that in your prospecting messaging. Go back to personalization at scale. If you know that these are an issue, you can then use that. And that's where this AE SDR collaboration really works. You've got the SDR at the low levels, gathering the information, AE using it at the higher levels to get in a meeting with a director, VP, or C-level person. The trick is you got to share that back with the SDR, right? If the SDR did the grunt work, the AE can't take the credit for creating the opportunity. There's got to be that. And that's got to be supported by the leader. And so that's something that I think is a bit more modern, right? Like if I put on the modern twist, what we're talking about is something that is as old as time. But with this modern twist, figuring out how you can get information from a company to then use it for personalization at scale so that your message really hits home.
Okay, we've got a poll coming up here. So Rita, do you want to fire that one up? So I think if you have SDRs or if you have people. Hosts and panelists can't vote. Okay, great. Yeah. That's live. Thank you. I'm sure a whole bunch of answers are coming in right now. So I suppose if you have SDRs and AEs, you may call them different things. You may call them business development reps. You may call them something else inside your org. But do the people who help open your conversations and close them. And I think from my side here, I think the thing that often gets in the way here is this can feel like a chore for the AE to give this feedback. And it really does have to come from the AE to be like, hey, this lead that came in was wonderful, or this lead, was not. And I think that, again, whether it's tools like Gong, whether it's other tools, like there are some improved tools out there around like doing note taking where you can relatively easily share your notes from the call, etc. I'm waiting for Chat GPT to come through and do some sort of amazing synthesis of a call, etc. But I think that that is something that I think the tools just to try to make that easy and make that seamless and make it not be a chore, but still have that feedback session, because it is the case often that they aren't as closely aligned as possible. Let's see the results of the poll, Rita. Okay, great. I mean, I think, again, for most of you, you're a tight-knit team, so that's fantastic. I think those that are in the no, not at all, or the yes, but not often, again, what can you do to make that a bit easier? Like, what can you do to make that a bit simpler, to give that feedback, and just like 1 or 2 steps that you can do this week to just try to like move that forward generally. And again, I, as Carl said, I think this does start with the leader, and you can do comp structures to incentivize this and all sorts of things like that. But often it's the case that people, they are incentivized to want to do this, and you just need to make it easy.
Yeah, I've always said about this relationship to AEs specifically, you get what you give. if you give nothing, expect not much back. If you take a vested interest and invest in that relationship, expect that you'll reap those rewards. And that's a good thing. The other thing that I'll say, I think has been said in a slightly different way, is if your AEs and SDRs aren't working together, then those SDRs aren't going to get the skills that they need to be the future AEs of the company. And that actually is that's a risk that you run, that they're going to want to leave and go to an organization that does support that.
100%.
All right. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where we start talking about times like these. And for folks that are as old as Mark and I, we have seen a couple of these downturns. There are some people on this call, I'm sure, that this is the first time that they haven't had glory days. I have an old saying, I don't think I came up with it, but I'll take credit for it. When times are good, everyone wants to be in sales. When times are bad, nobody wants to be in sales. And so how can you, we just talked about this at Sales Kickoff, how can you take what seems like a bad thing and try to turn it into a decent thing, right? When the world gives you lemons, how do you make lemonade? And so I want to talk about a couple of things that we are doing, just to share some ideas. And I'll give full credit where credit is due to our SDR leader, who has been phenomenal, Jack, in coming up and ideating on some things that are very creative in times like these. And so actually, I'll start with that. We were specifically going out with messaging around times like these, right? Like, what are people trying to do in times like these? They're trying to be protective and conservative. They're trying to figure out ways to save, do more with less, because these aren't the go, go, go glory days of 2021. And so our messaging was, we know that these are the things that you care about. We can help support that. Like, these are the things that we can specifically do for you. This just happened to be a cost savings effort. We think of ourselves as 95% of the functionality at 50% of the price. And so that's the messaging that we were going out with. And it was resonating. People were saying, yes, I am looking to reduce my technology spend. And you guys look like a good alternative at a lower cost. I'm interested in that. What we did as we found more feedback from that, and it morphed into something that was much more personal and has much better results. And so what we did is we said, we can infer a few things about you as a company and your usage of a competing product. And here's what we think your situation is. And so we weren't saying, if you're in this situation, we're saying, we think you're in this situation, we're spoon feeding it to you. If we're right, this is what we can do for you. This is what the benefit that you will gain from taking a meeting with us and potentially using our products and services. And that, it's still early, but that has much more promise, because now people don't have to make that mental connection. They can say, oh, it's all right here in black and white. This is the benefit that I'm going to get. We don't have to expect them to actually process it. It just comes right to them. And so that's one thing. I'd love to hear some creative things that you guys are doing, Mark, because I know you guys are on the bleeding edge on some of these things too.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, this is a time to be, to try things. And I think, look, first of all, there are parts of the economy that are thriving and doing wonderfully. I will say in tech land, there definitely is a bit of a belt tightening going on.
I should have led with that. We do sell to a lot of technology companies, and so we know that is a concern.
Totally. And like, if you look at our metrics between like a segment that's very important for us, like software technology, IT companies, like versus professional services companies as another one, like there's like they're chalk and cheese to some degree. I would say, so again, like if you're finding some segments are like, are doing better than others, like, hey, like you can go and shift your focus a little bit. And obviously that's something to sort of think about. I think there's another thing, which is just that we've been thinking a lot about, which is just anticipating what some of the challenges are going to be on this journey, and just trying to remove as many barriers as you can, and have the team kind of prepped for conversations around that, so they can move quickly internally. So there's a thing that we've been seeing where, you might have a conversation like Kyle has, where you sort of start one being like, hey, there's the ability for ease, inside Qwilr, we can come in sometimes and replace a digital asset management tool and an e-sign tool, and sometimes like a contract management tool as well, and sort of have all of that sort of bundled in one space. The issue is like those three contracts aren't like all neatly aligned. Like there's not like some sort of time where like, oh, like all of them come off on May 1st. And so we're just going to easily do that. And so how do you have a conversation with prospects about like how you might structure your deal terms, or structure payments, or structure other things to sort of make that, not so that you're like necessarily having a terrible time and not getting paid. But so that you're able to sort of be like, hey, we're going to be a bit front foot and a bit aggressive in those conversations and be ready to have them and know that hey, if you're doing a rip out and replace, maybe we're going to stage our payments over the course of a period of time. Now, like, again, different companies will have different goals around like cash flow and finances, and that may make more sense or less. But there's been things where we've sort of played around with it, saying like, hey, yeah, you still have to pay us the 12-month annual period, but actually we're going to give you 14 months of contract, like in this first thing. And so, or we're going to do a payment up front and then not another payment for 5 months, because we know in 5 months time, that's when you roll off this other contract. And again, like, it's little things like that sort of play around with how do you sort of make that easier if we are in a zone where CFOs are being very conscious about how much money is going out each month, and you sort of need to find a way to make that a bit easier. We're going to talk a bit more about stuff like this a bit later on in the call. I think just generally though, if you have an ethos from the top, from leadership down, being like, hey, I know that this is going to be a challenging time and I'm here in the trenches with you and I'm going to work alongside you. I'm going to I know our VP of sales, myself personally, like other like people in the company have been jumping on more sales calls of late and sort of working through things and helping AEs out and trying to do that thing of, bringing a founder along or bringing someone senior along to the call, sort of help things through. And little things like that to sort of show, I think, like, help lead the team down this path of like, we're all in this together. We're going to get creative. We're going to figure it out. And as you say, like, your SDR leader, Jack, I mean, I think we have great ideas coming from everywhere, whether it's a new SDR, whether it's an experienced AE, whether it's someone from a different part of the org, just being very open to listen for like creative solutions and different ways of pitching or positioning or whatever else. And so I think, in times like this, it's sort of a little bit more, let's be okay moving away from the strict optimized process that maybe we had in a few areas and being a bit more flexible to be like, hey, yeah, we're going to take a bit longer on this account and we're going to involve a bunch more people, and it's not going to have the most perfect ROI, but it's an important deal. We want to help it get over the line so we can get to our number.
Yeah. Well said. We are experimenting with contract buyouts and things like that because these are interesting times. The number of people that are out looking for net new technology has just fallen off a cliff, especially in technology, as a caveat. And so it's the competition for net new deals has increased a lot versus there might be other people who are unhappy with their current provider. And so I'm happy to buy out your contract because I'm in this for the long term, right? We might not make as much money in the first year, but that's fine because we expect to have you as a client for 3, 5, 7 years. And so we'll make it up at some point. And so getting that new client now is much more important.
And I think there's also something magical. I know we're on time. We've got to get to the next topic, but there is something magical about having real confidence in your product like that when you're speaking to a potential customer, to be like, listen, like, you're going to have a wonderful time with us. It's going to be great. We don't need to like price optimize for day one. We want this to be a long-term relationship where you get a heap of value from us. We want to be like one of the things you're overjoyed about paying this bill every year. And like having that confidence to say that and be like, I know you're going to have a great time here. I think can sometimes also like play into your hands and sort of let them build a lot of comfort quite quickly. Let's roll along, Rita. Okay, quantification versus qualification. So I think this is like a mega broad topic with like 7,000 different angles to it. But I suppose that the thing that I'm going to talk about today is the world is now filled with data and metrics, and you can measure and track and understand things, and you can go and sort of see what's out there. And I think like quantification in a whole bunch of areas has become incredibly important and sophisticated in the land of sales. You can, with various tools, whether it's your CRM, whether you're buying additional things to plug into your CRM, and we have a whole bunch of things that we use to measure and track and score and all that sort of stuff. And then you get the SDRs in there, and as they're opening conversations and starting conversations, they're often like, oh, I want to make sure I find someone who meets these exact sort of criteria and this and that and the other. And because we kind of know at this sort of high level sense, Qwilr has, 4,500 customers. We sort of can measure and track and understand who that is. It's very easy to fall into this zone of like, everybody's a number. And I think like that stuff is super duper important. Don't get me wrong. It's like, there's like, when you're trying to do a business at scale, you kind of have to think about those things. And It matters to be thoughtful. But at the end of the day, like, there is a human being on this other side of this conversation, and they have some pain point or problem. And like, that's all that matters in the conversation to some degree. Like, I'm a bit of an extremist here, but like, I often am on sales calls and I'm like, why are we here? Like, you know, of all the things in the world you could be doing today, it's summer in Sydney, you could be out for a surf. Instead, we are on this Zoom call doing a sales call. Like, why are we here? Like, what brought you here today? And just trying to like empathetically understand, like, what is that problem? And then like qualify, like, what are their needs? What is their system here? And I think very much a thing that can happen in the bad times, and actually not on the last time Kyle and I chatted, we chatted a bit about this, was in the bad times, you can want to, AEs, like salespeople, can want to build pipeline and kind of be desperate to have more and more things in there. And actually now's the time to qualify people out, to be like, have a chat and be like, hey, thank you so much for sharing that. We are absolutely not a fit for you. Maybe you should think about A, B, and C instead, or whatever. And give, you know, again, still try to give them a good time, because if not a customer today, maybe a customer at some stage in the future. But having that time to sort of spend like in that qualification process and understanding them. And I really do think there's a lot of, again, this is in a funny way, like modern selling techniques. This is like a thing like as old as time in sales, about like really understanding your customer. And I think that obviously the two, I'm not trying to say that quantification is useless. It's super, super useful, but it can become a crutch. And I do think that qualification is just super important. Tanner, done. Shut up. Over to Kyle.
No, I mean, to expand upon that a little bit, qualifying out is super important right now. And this is a selling strategy that I talk to our team. In fact, I was talking about this yesterday on our stand-up. If there is, if you're up against a competitor, do not bash that competitor. That competitor wins business for certain types of use cases. You win business for certain types of use cases. That's the best way to sell against a competitor. If you are like this, you're probably a good fit for us. If you're not like this, you're probably a good fit for somebody else. And I'd be happy to introduce you to those that can satisfy your specific use case. And so that's a bit of a side note. I mean, I don't want to add too much to what you said, except for on quantification. This is like one of my deep breath. This is like one of my favorite things about sales, right? To get in and start talking to a customer and to quantify the problem that they have so that you can associate that to a reason to move forward, right? If there is no reason to move forward, if this isn't costing them time or money or resources some other way by doing things the way that they're currently doing them, or it doesn't provide a business opportunity for them to make money, then they're not going to buy. And you need to associate that as a salesperson. That's the thing that you need to associate to. Find out how your product or service is going to help them. You hear this as a through line whenever you talk to me about sales philosophy stuff. It's not about me or my product or my company or my bottom line. It's absolutely not. Those are the last things you should be talking about. It's everything about them and what you can do for them. Because guess what? If I'm selling to you, Mark, you don't care about me. You care about you. And I need to know that in order to be a good salesperson. And so that's where this quantification really is important, is understanding their business metrics, understanding what is going to move the needle for them, and sell to that. And we'll talk about this on the last subject of this session. And so I'll save a little bit for there. But if you really understand how much this problem that you're trying to solve costs them, you can be pretty influential in getting them to move forward. And I'll leave it there because I want to talk about that. I want to save a little something for the end.
No, for sure. And yeah, +1. We'll loop back around. All right, Rita, let's go next.
All right, this is going to be super short. Text messaging. I think we have a poll on this, and I will wait for the poll, but I don't want to color the poll too much. I think text messaging is an absolutely critical part of the sales process, and probably a bad part of the prospecting process. That's just my own opinion. I have been prospected to by text message, and I feel like it's intrusive. I think a lot of people feel that same way. A cold outbound text message is like one level too personal, I think. When you are in a sales cycle, it is absolutely critical that you are on text messaging level with your prospects. If your sales cycle is longer than one call, or if there's more than one decision maker in your sales cycle, you should have your champions email, cell phone, and be able to get in touch with them. And they should want to respond to you. That's what the definition of a champion is that they have power inside the organization. They might not be the ultimate economic buyer, but they can do things for you internally, and they want you to win. And so if you are on text messaging, a level where you can text message them, that's just easier for them to respond to you. It makes it non-intrusive in their day. And so to summarize, and then I'll let you go on this topic, Mark, text messaging in prospecting, no. Text messaging in deal management, absolutely.
Okay, I think we're gonna kick off the poll any second now. I think so. Let me. So first of all, prospecting wise, like that's just spam, and I like I think I've stolen this line from you, Kyle, or at least from somebody. But bad breath is worse than no breath. Like don't give me a bad. I would rather my team not give a bad impression than give no impression. Like so I think text messaging really does. It's just incredibly hard to not feel spammy if you're doing prospecting. You're reaching out to people. Somehow, as a society, we've all agreed that like doing this via email is fine, and via LinkedIn is also totally fine. And like there are certain areas in life where it's fine to do this prospecting work, but I think text messaging is a bit too personal, and I'd include WhatsApp in that. I think the thing also just to be a bit mindful of is I think different cultures have a different view around text messaging during the buying process, and like whether you've kind of earned that right. And I would say like our reps in America do a whole bunch of texting once the deal is up and running and going. And I'd say it's like not unheard of at all, but it's less common in Australia and the UK, less common again in Europe. And I think it's just a degree of, have you built that trust? Have you built that rapport? Do you have the right to sort of be in that space? And I would say again, like it's just, I think that maybe that bar is a little higher culturally in some places versus others. It doesn't mean you can't get there. And I think that if you can get there, it is such a good sign for the deal. There's someone who's engaged, they're back and forth, there's an ease of communication, because I do think that sort of really matters. This is like super interesting. Like, I mean, like basically we're sort of seeing that like 90% of people, like 60% of people never do it. And most people sort of do it very rarely. And I would say that this is something that you should think about. You know, it might not be perfect in all situations, but it can, like, if you've got someone who's comfortable enough texting with you and they're going back and forth, it really is a very powerful signal.
Yeah, I think this the wording of this question was a bit weird. It says, do you use text messaging when communicating with leads? And so maybe some people interpreted it as, you know, in the deal cycle. I was interpreting it as with leads, somebody that you have never spoken to. They're not an opportunity yet. And so I would caution that. And I think you're absolutely right. The cultural differences are striking. I'll give you a quick suggestion. How you start on a text message with somebody. You have your champion, you've developed that champion, you give a demo to other stakeholders inside the organization. As soon as that demo is done, text your champion to ask how that went. It's a pretty innocuous, you know, introduce yourself, make sure they know who it's from, and don't just say, how do you think that went, from some random phone number. That's a great way to see if they are open to that text messaging communication. The other way to do it is just to ask, do you mind if I send you a text message?
100%. I think that's perfect. I think that's great. All right, Kate. Rita, we're gonna go next slide. Okay, this is something that I think about a lot. This is something that Qwilr is very much designed and sort of has evolved over time to be like more and more around like solving this problem. And I think something that in this moment, you know, when you look at what's happening, generally, I think this is very important. So let me sort of set the stage here. Behind the scenes buyers, you know, when you're going through a buying process, yes, you'll have your champion. And sometimes life is simple and you speak to someone, the first person you speak to, they are the buyer, they have budget, they don't need to talk to anybody else, you know, et cetera, et cetera. It's all very straightforward. Those are wonderful deals. Alas, not that many of them come across my team's plate. And what generally happens is you go through and you find someone who's very excited about it, and then they need to win over maybe their manager, maybe their boss, maybe the CFO. If you're in a larger org, you might have to go through IT or security or procurement or whatever else. There's a whole bunch of these sort of stakeholders that can live in the back of the system, and that list can go a lot longer. And I think one of the things that we think about a lot at Qwilr is just like, how do you sell? How do you make the buying process easy and enjoyable and nice, as good as it possibly can be for those behind the scenes buyers? And then also, I think trying to understand who is in the ascendancy within the org, like where is your greatest sort of risk within that sort of space? And so I think like to pick a generic thing right now, budgets are being tightened, or belts are being tightened, etc. It's very easy to be like, hey, the CFO or the finance team is possibly going to be someone who's a blocker for this deal and almost certainly going to be involved some way. So what can we do to sort of make it very clear what the value is inside here, or even just giving a context of what this is? And one of the things that we see more and more used in Qwilr, and so Qwilr is a way for you to create all of your sales collateral as these beautiful web pages. Having things like, if you're doing Gong or Chorus, like having those call recordings where you have the demo, embedding that demo that was done to their team inside that Qwilr page. So someone can watch it at 1.5 speed and be like, oh, I see what this product is. Oh, I see why they're excited by it, and et cetera, et cetera. Doing things like we have like, the ability to do like little widgets, like ROI calculators to show, hey, here's how we think this will impact on terms of like dollars saved or extra dollars won or time saved or whatever else. But I think also, we sort of, again, like tend to talk through in our proposals. If we think security is going to be the issue, we're going to have a whole bunch of logos there and talk about like, hey, here's how secure Qwilr is and GDPR compliant and so on and so forth. If we think finance is going to be an issue, one of the things that finance often cares about isn't just, are we getting a discount or whatever else? Maybe that's procurement cares about that. But more about like, is this actually going to be used? Because finance people look at their tech stack across the company and like, I feel like half these products are not fully utilized, and sort of being able to show, hey, we're going to get this implemented quickly. You're going to have a very fast time to ROI, like all that sort of stuff. And I think just being aware of who those people are behind the scenes, and then being able to present them with some level of collateral that they can quickly get up to speed. You want to enable your champion to sell to them as well as possible. But also, if you can sell to them directly and give them the context and give them the messaging that you want to give, like how you're able to sort of better do that, I think is very powerful. And then also just, have the context as to who, and often your champion will tell you who are going to be the potential blockers on this deal, and then sort of try to craft something to sort of help them get context quickly, help them get comfortable, help them feel excited about the deal.
Yeah. No, I think a good rep will understand that there are people that they're never going to talk to in the sales process that are critical to getting the deal done. And they will help their champion sell to those people when they're not in the room, right? And again, the definition of a champion is somebody who wants you to win, somebody who will stand up for you in the room when you're not there. And enabling your champion to do that is absolutely critical here. And so there's a couple different things you could do. Howard asked a question about long sales cycle customers. And this is a traditional kind of like, this is an enterprise type of sales motion where you're not going to get an audience with the CFO. And you've spent a long time building up this business case, which we'll talk about on the next topic. How does that business case get delivered through the person who can actually say yes or no? Oftentimes you don't get a chance to meet with that person. And the economic buyer, the person who actually has the authority to spend or sign or both, oftentimes the signature is not the economic buyer, the person who actually holds the purse string. So be careful of that. They're not one and the same. Oftentimes you don't get a chance to meet with that person, but they're very interested in a deal and they can say no. And so preparing yourself to enable the people that you have spoken to sell on your behalf is super critical, because in today's day and age, the economic buyer has changed to the CFO. They get ultimate last decision on pretty much any new spend, unless it was budgeted for a long time and you've been in this sales cycle forever.
I'm going to quickly say we've been bad on time management here. So we can chat all day about this stuff. So we are at time. We've got one more topic we're going to go through. I think it's a really valuable one that Kyle's going to lead. So if you can stick around, please do. And then after that, we're going to do Q&A. So look, I think Kyle and I both are going to be happy to stay to the hour just to try to get as many questions in. Obviously, we understand if you have to go, this is being recorded. So we'll share this around later. But I would say that I think BVA is worth sticking around for if you can.
Yeah, and business value assessment is what a BVA is. It's a fancy terminology for a business case. And I hope that people who are selling anything more than a couple $100 are creating business value assessments in some way, shape, or form. A business case, a quick email that outlines what the value of your product is and what it's going to do for the company in their terms. That's the most critical part, is you can't write this in the way that you speak about your product. You need to have done good discovery. You need to have done good quantification. You need to have managed to understand their process throughout the sales cycle so that you can create a business case that speaks to them in their terms, right? We sell licenses to sales, SDR, and customer success people. But if we're talking to an organization that calls their account executives business leaders, we would be foolish to call them account executives when they call them business leaders, right? You just have to associate it so that the BVA makes it look and feel like it's specifically custom to them. Now, the topic is how to use a BVA to drive urgency. Well, if you are doing a good job at quantification, really understanding the business problem that you're trying to solve, then you start quantifying what it's costing them today with the inefficiency or with the way that they're doing things now. And the easy thing to do is to say, all right, this is a $600,000 a year problem. That's $50,000 a month. And if you decide that you're going to push this decision by a month or 2 months, you just cost your organization $50,000 or $100,000. Now, that's a very aggressive way of saying it, but that's the underlying message that you want to send. And you can do that in a business value assessment. You can say monthly cost of the way that you're doing things now with inefficiency, and that should drive your urgency. And then, in addition, your BVA should include an implementation plan if your product takes implementation time and resources and all those sorts of things. And one thing that we talk about internally at Mixmax quite a bit when we create mutual action plans, and a mutual action plan can turn into a business value assessment. Just 1 second on mutual action plans. It's a plan for the things that the customer has to do and Mixmax has to do in order to progress through the sales cycle and beyond. And that's the point that I was just trying to make, which is your mutual action plan and your BVA shouldn't end with a signature. It should end at some point in the future that you haven't even identified yet, because the relationship doesn't end once the salesperson sells the deal. That feels self-serving to the salesperson. What you want to do is you want to convince the customer that you're in it for the long haul and that you have a plan to carry them through all the phases of their life cycle as a customer with you.
I mean, I think this is the sort of sophisticated level that you want to reach, where you, again, what is the best way to sell the behind the scenes buyers? It's to deeply understand their problem, which starts with qualification and quantification early on, and then goes through to sort of being able to build this sort of case such that when the CFO sees it, or whoever is the relevant person that you're particularly worried about, they're able to be it does feel foolish for us to not move ahead here. The team's excited about it. I can quickly, understand the context and the value here. They've demonstrated, whether it's, whether they've quantified it, whether there's an ROI calculation or whatever it is. We've sort of built this sort of trust and relationship across here. The other stakeholders are excited. It just kind of feels like a pretty straightforward, great, let's go. And maybe there's a bit of haggling between the team about price or timeline or whatever, but basically it's just final details before we go. And I think that again, this is the end of the sale, the close starts at the beginning. I think understanding, those things and understand what really matters, why they're there, and then taking that all the way through to sort of understand great, how do we sort of make this easy for people behind the scenes as well, and build that case to try to make it easy for them, right? Try to make it a really wonderful buying experience that is straightforward, clear, they can understand and they can share internally, and your champion can have a good time. Okay.
One
That's
last comment on that, which I think
please.
is relevant here. Great salespeople understand that they know their product and value much better than the prospect might. And
Yeah.
so you may unearth something that the prospect doesn't even know about their own business, right? They may not know that this is costing them $500,000 a year. That's just the way we've always done things. And so we deal with the inefficiency, whereas you might unearth it. And so don't take that for granted that they understand these things. You're helping them. You're a trusted business advisor, hopefully, by understanding their business to the degree where you've unearthed these things and helped them recognize that they can actually do better. That's selling.
Okay, friends, it is Q&A time. So we've got a few questions in there. If you want to submit a question, please feel free to do it by the Q&A tab. Otherwise, we'll also try to jump in the webinar chats as well. I should say, if you wish to learn more, of course, wonderful products, this Mixmax and Qwilr. You can go and find a demo for Mixmax. You can find a demo for Qwilr. You can go check out our websites, and I think it was obviously lovely to talk to you today. So I think just there's a couple of questions on the same theme here. So Ben asks, do you have any statistics around the effectiveness of email versus LinkedIn DMs versus cold calling and texting, etc., in 2023? And then someone anonymously asked, outside. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to stop with Ben's question. So I don't have any hard stats to hand. We might have some that go around later on because I feel confident Sarah from my team will have a bunch of things up her sleeve. But Kyle, what do you think about that question? When you think about in prospecting, email versus LinkedIn versus cold calling versus texting, on the prospecting side, I think this question is more focused on.
Yeah, actually, it's a nice tee up, and I promise not to make this into a pitch on Mixmax, but this is part of the value of a tool like Mixmax, a sales engagement solution that gives you reporting and feedback on what is actually working in your outreach. Is the first touch point being an email the most effective? Is it a LinkedIn direct message? Is it a phone call? Is it something else? There are still organizations out there who do other things like handwritten letters or a gift or certain things like that. And so this would give you some visibility on what actually works. I would say, short of having a sales engagement solution, test it out to see what works. Try it for a little bit of time and see what works for your ideal customer personas.
Yeah, I think so. I would say texting on the prospecting side, I think we talked about this a bit earlier. I wouldn't do it. You feel free to test, but I think it's I just really don't believe in that. Look, there are some stats out there that I think email works very well. LinkedIn can work relatively well. You need to be aware that LinkedIn's changed their structure, so their inbox now has this primary inbox and this secondary inbox. A lot of prospecting goes to the secondary inbox now, which is not the most viewed inbox in the world. And so I think there are some, you just do need to be mindful about how you're doing that prospecting. If you're connected with the person, you have the ability to do a much better interaction on that side. And look, cold calling, it can really work, right? It really, if you could get good at it, it can really, really work. It's just, there's a scale thing on that side. Visitors
Joys of working from home.
Love it.
School's over.
So we've got another question coming in here, which was, do you have any thoughts on the Jolt effect, which is the follow-up to the Challenger Sale book? I must admit that I have not read the Jolt effect yet, which makes me a bad modern sales leader, because the Challenger Sale was one of the defining books of the moment. I have talked to some friends about it. Kyle, have you read it yet?
I haven't read the book, but I understand the big picture message of it, which is, and I'm paraphrasing here, and I believe I understand it, which is the fear of failure in implementing something is what's holding people back from doing anything. They'd rather have the status quo, because that's the way it's always been, rather than trying something new and failing. Either because they fear that they might get fired for making a technology investment that didn't pan out. And there have been people like that, make no mistake. There's an old saying, it originated, nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. And it has, everybody's got their big, 800-pound gorilla in their space that they use that term for. And I think that there's probably less of that today. It really is more of a, we just don't have the resources to go out and do these things rather than the fear of failure. I think a good salesperson can help them understand how this can be really game changing for their organization. There is a leap of faith with company, and I'll just be honest, like there's a leap of faith with a company like Mixmax. It's not a household name. It's not a Google or an IBM. And so there are people that take extra levels of precaution in order to adopt new technology like this that they don't know. Mixmax has over 10,000 customers, so it's not like we're a toy that's going to fail you. However, people still want to have that social proof and know that this is going to work for them, because each organization is going to implement and use Mixmax in a bit of a slightly different way. So I do think that there is that fear, and I think getting ahead of that and just recognizing that that is one of the things that you could close lost a deal from is no decision. Right? We're just not going to do anything. We're paralyzed by the fear of failure that we're just not going to do anything because you are asking us to spend money, which we don't have freely available. And we're going to try to reserve that for the things that we really, 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 really need rather than this new thing, which could be very promising, but is also risky. And so I think adopting that into your sales process and recognizing that and talking about that with your champion is super important.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the one of the things the book highlights, again, this is from my like conversation with people and quick sort of reviews, etc., is like, I think that the most common, certainly if this is the case inside Qwilr, like the most common closed lost reason is something along the lines of no decision made or not a priority right now or some other sort of thing where it's like you didn't lose to competition. You didn't lose because like you don't have some particular feature. You didn't like, there wasn't like some very clean answer that they're like, oh, if only we'd done X. It's actually you lost, and the little bit the harsh reality is like you lost because you probably didn't run a perfect process on the sales side. Like it's probably one that you possibly could have won had you built some additional urgency, or had you structured things in a way that got people over the line. That just as we're doing modern sales techniques, like a little thing that we've been playing around with that I know others have had some success with is, when you're in a process in your CRM and you have sort of these deal stages, you can use deal stages in a modern CRM to like trigger email sequences. And so as prospects move into the latter quarter or latter third of your pipeline, whatever that may be called, everyone has different names for these stages. But as you're sort of moving towards the end there, you should be like at the start of that, if you have a drip campaign, the first type of messaging you're trying to send is very different to what you're sending at the end. You don't need to like convince them that you're like a cool tool that, they should check out. It's like, help me like remove the fear that this is going to be a disaster. And I think, you can have things where it's like, hey, here's a bunch in tech, here's a bunch of G2 badges. We're a leader in this field, Here's a review from someone who's in your industry who you may even know. Like it's a wonderful one. Here's here is some stats around the speed of implementation or the speed to ROI or the ease of use or whatever else. And I think on that sort of side, there's just like, how you sort of communicate towards the end there around things that sort of can help the buyer, that help your champion feel confident and really push hard for you, and then help others in the org feel confident as well. I think can be very important.
Yeah, that actually dovetails nicely. I know we're very close to running out of time here with the last question here, which is outside of email and LinkedIn, what other avenues of prospecting are being used? And I think it dovetails nicely with what Mark was just saying, which is referrals. If you've got a list of happy customers, ask them to introduce you to other people. That's the best way to get them out of this mindset of we're going to fail. This company is an untested, unproven solution. They've got somebody in their referral network that has used it and is happy using it and is willing to stand by the solution so much so that they're willing to introduce you to new people. It's like selling more of your solution into the same company. It's so much easier to do that than it is to find a net new customer. Again, referrals are such a higher conversion rate because there's already that social proof built in with somebody that's in their network. So I encourage our sales reps to use it as part of the sales process. to ask them for referrals if they're happy at the end of the sales process, or more likely once they've been implemented and gotten some value.
Yeah, I'm now going to go back and hassle people back that, because I don't think we do that as well as we could. Something that we're playing around with at the moment that is like a bit of a new thing that like there's different ways to do this, but there are some tools now out there that sort of enable this. One of them is called User Gems. I'm 90% sure that's the right name.
We just adopted User Gems last month.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
I probably heard about it from you then. So we're sort of playing around with it. I'll let you give the pitch properly if I screw this up. But the basic idea is you have people who love you, who are having a great time with you. They're using it at their company. Maybe they were a champion. Maybe they were a user. Like whatever it is, you know, people move around. They get a new job. They take a new role somewhere else, or they move city or country or whatever. For some reason that they've moved jobs and they land somewhere new. You already have a good relationship with them. They've already bought from you before. They've been a power user of you or whatever it is. And the ability to use tools like User Gems to identify them and then sort of prospect them and be like, hey, congrats. I saw you got this new role. That's so awesome. Very happy for you. If you think there's a need for Mixmax or Qwilr inside your wonderful new organization, I would be very happy to assist you on that process, etc. And again, like that can just be a very easy way of sort of, that's sort of similar to the referral of just like starting a conversation with someone who already knows the value. And I think, look, obviously you need to have a certain scale for that to work well, but not that gigantic, to be honest, because again, like you do have like people, I don't know the stats, but it's every X number of years people take a new job. And so as you start to build a volume of users of your product, like you're just going to have X number of people a month who do move, who you can, at least reach out to. And if all you say is congrats and a nice message to them, fine. I mean, that's just a nice thing to do in the world generally. They're going to think a little bit highly of your company, et cetera, even if they don't do anything else with it.
And with that, we are over time. So
over time.
Really heartfelt thank you to everybody who stuck with us for all 62 minutes here. We really appreciate you stopping by. Hopefully everybody got something from it. If you're interested in following up with Mixmax or Qwilr, obviously you've got those demo links. Thanks everybody. And thank you, Mark. I really appreciate your insights here.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Rita and Sarah in the background, who've done a wonderful job making this all easy for us lazy bones up here, just chatting away. Thank you, everybody. It was a real pleasure. And have a great day.
Take care, everyone. Bye.